He beat Tiger Woods while severely hungover and threw $55,000 into the river during a fight with his fourth wife. John Daly is a name you'll never forget. From this video onwards, you're completely different from most athletes. You hate exercise, you despise health food, you smoke, you drink. His insane lifestyle began after starting a golf scholarship where at the age of 18, his coach would put him on a very unique diet. He used to smoke Marlboro Lights, and he said, just start smoking here, have a cigarette, whatever you got to do to keep the weight off the smoking cigarettes. John began to eat nothing but popcorn, Diet Coke, and Jack Daniels, stating in his book, most of the time I was drinking Jack like you wouldn't believe 1/5 a day, sometimes more. Most people would be drunk for a month on what I'd had before dinner before. Later, adding that he didn't even drink water. I used to drink anywhere from 12 to 20 Diet Cokes a day. How? I don't know, because I don't drink water. I hate water. I cannot stand to drink water. With this in mind, it's no surprise that vegetables were also out of the question. I don't eat beans, spinach, broccoli, any of that stuff. When I was young, my dad would force it down me and I would throw it up. However, unbelievably, this diet worked given Daly lost the needed weight, albeit while failing almost every class as a result of the drinking. I just sit in my room and drink straight out of a Jack Daniels bottle, then go practice for 3 or 4 hours. Yet this would only help him to become a better golfer. When I had a good buzz going, I could play really good golf. And I think it's just because the body's so loose and, free. Not to mention, he was also, quote, one of the hardest working guys on the team. This, in combination with over 16 years of practice, led Daly to win his first ever professional tournament at the age of 21. My winner's check was for $6,700. The next 2 months, I made about $28,000 in 4 events. Yet this wasn't the only way that John Daly began to make money. On the Full Send podcast, John explained that he'd bet $100 per hole against unsuspecting players. $100 a hole. Paid for my hotel room, paid for my drinks, for everything described in his book as playing other guys for money. Usually men at the local golf clubs who thought they were better than they were, who figured they could kick this fat kid's ass. That's the way I spent my summers. Think of it as my permanent part-time job. Yet this would also introduce him to the toxic world of gambling. About 3 years after turning pro, John won $16,000 in a South African tournament before losing the entire amount at a casino. Less than 24 hours later, in a fit of rage, Daly completely trashed his hotel room, also introducing the early stages of his potentially volatile nature. Sometimes I'd beat my bus up, sometimes I'd beat my car up, sometimes I'd beat a hotel room up. Despite this, John would go on to win his third significant event, which just so happened to have been the PGA Championship, turning John Daly into an overnight superstar. It was crazy. There was 4,000 people sitting in front of the clubhouse and on the driving range for you just waiting for me to get in. And trust me, I was not used to. All of a sudden, I was being offered tons of money to shop for Monday and Tuesday corporate outings at fundraisers. I was getting paid $25,000, $50,000, $75,000 a pop to hang with golf lovers for half a day. John was paid $230,000 for the championship win itself, yet he'd give $30,000 to the kids of a spectator who was killed by lightning midway through the tournament. This kind of generosity helped John to build a cult-like fan base of people who loved his rough edges. You have a simple motto. This is a quote. I just hit it as hard as I can, and if I can find it, I hit it again. Which he was then able to monetize through some very funny sponsorships. Daly received endorsements from Dunkin' Donuts, Hooters, and a diet pill called Trim Spa. Yet it was the golf-specific sponsorships that began to make him millions. I made another $236,000 in 1991 just for playing with pink clubs and wearing a pink shirt and a pink hat. And that was only the beginning. Early in 1992, I signed my first really big sponsorship contract, a 10-year deal with Wilson that paid me millions of dollars a year. However, at the same time, Daly's performance began to go downhill rapidly. After placing first at the PGA Championship, Daly returned the following year to achieve 82nd place, explaining on the Full Send podcast that he'd spent all night drinking, arriving at 7:30 for a 7:32 tee-off. There was sometimes on tour that I didn't sober up to about the 13th hole. Yeah, you get in at 7:30 in the morning. I got a tee time at 8, 5, or 9. You'd be out till 7 or 7:30. Yeah, in the morning when you had an 8 a.m. tee time? Yeah, it stayed in his book. Basically, my golf game in 1992 played second fiddle to making money and partying. Instead of partying, I guess I ought to just say drinking, which is what it was. For the first time in my life, I let my golf game slide that whole year. I don't think I'd practiced more than 2 days in a row, and it showed. Daly's poor performance brought about fits of anger, where he'd fight his opponents, rake clubs, or throw them into the water, leading to a suspension from the PGA Tour on account of bad behavior. On top of this, Daly was suffering from clear midday alcohol withdrawal, made worse by antidepressants, which gave him the shakes and the sweats and diarrhea. For this reason, Daly made the choice to quit drinking. However, he'd explained that his sobriety made no difference, as he'd simply swapped one addiction for another. He'd write in his book. At rehab, they call it cross-addiction. They warn you that when you give up one thing like whiskey, you're going to be looking to replace it with something else. For me, when I stopped drinking, I started eating more chocolate. Sometimes I'd eat 1,520 packs of M&Ms around with peanuts. I ate chocolate chip muffins and chocolate croissants all day long, every day at the tournament, which for whatever reason, and seemed to work as John Daly was about to make a comeback. After 3 years of very average golfing, Daly came out of nowhere to win the incredibly prestigious 1995 British Open, doing so on a daily diet of 9 chocolate chip muffins. In true John Daly fashion, he ignored a phone call from the US president just so he could eat, stating, "But I still haven't found my dinner yet, and I'm starving. Besides, I didn't even vote for the guy showing that Daly had the whole world in his hands until he started drinking again." On the brink, of course, with his second wife, Daly gave in and headed out for a big night at the bar before landing himself in hospital after falling through a hotel door. He'd check himself back into rehab around 2 days later, although the media had already gotten hold of the story and his endorsements weren't happy. My two main sponsors, Wilson and Reebok, had dropped me while I was in rehab. The Wilson deal paid me several million a year plus bonuses, and I'd just done another 5-year deal with Reebok. As an alternative, Daly accepted a $1.2 million per year sponsorship from Callaway on the one condition that he stays sober. However, he eventually concluded that the deal wasn't worth it. A sponsor came to him and said $3 million. We want to send you to rehab, though." And he looked at me and said, "I'm good," and took a sip. Although this attitude would then help him beat Tiger Woods in a pretty funny way, Daly had qualified for a small 16-person tournament, and on the night before had drunk 3 bottles of Crown whiskey, leading Tiger to make some cocky remarks about how Daly had no chance of winning. And he says, "I'm probably going to kick his ass because JD is drunk right now." I said, "Okay." When the tournament started the following day, Daly decided to troll Tiger by acting as though he was still drunk, and he is looking at me the whole day. I've got drinks coming down, people bringing me drinks on the golf course. He goes, "What are you drinking?" I said, "I've got my Crown in here, man. I'm fine. Not 1 ounce out, because if you do that, you could trouble on the tour." But I got him thinking that I was really still drinking, helping John to completely demolish the tournament. I shoot 65 in, beating by like 6 shots. It's about the last time I ever beat him. Daly then earned $4 million in 2000, and $4 in 2005. Yet this would only fuel an addiction worse than any he'd experienced before gambling. You know, in Vegas, I'd play the $5,000 slot machine every time you pull it. How much is that? $5,000. Oh my God, it's one pool. $5,000 and $5,000 spins. While playing these $5,000 slot machines, Daly fed through $600,000 in a night without winning before taking out another $600,000, which he'd then lose again, meaning he'd lost $1.2 million in the space of 5 hours. By this point, Daly was up to his 4th wife, who confronted him about his gambling problem, initiating an argument that ended in the strangest way possible. I won like $55,000 in the casino, and I said to my 4th wife, "Cherie, if you're going to yell and scream at me about this, I threw it over the bridge going over to Memphis from Arkansas. I threw all the money out the car window and said, you know what? If you want that money, you can go find it. But let me tell you something. You don't have a job. You're not working. I'm supporting you. I'm paying all the bills." My buddy then took her to a McDonald's drive-thru and got her 2 cheeseburgers and some French fries and a soda. And it was like, okay, this is how you can live from now on if that's the way you want it. When John published his book in 2006, he gambled away $55 million over a 15-year. However, the worst was still yet to come. In 2007, an article was written on Daly's golf performance, stating John Daly withdrew from 5 tournaments and missed the cut on 8 others on the PGA Tour. His best finish was 3rd place at the Skins game, which only had 4 players. As a result, Daly lost his card, and it might have had something to do with his ever-declining diet. In 2008, CBS reporter Will Brinson was given the job to watch Daly during a professional game, noting that he consumed 21 cigs, 12 Diet Cokes, 6 packs of peanut M&Ms, 0.0 ounces of water, and the alcohol consumption hadn't stopped either. Only 4 months after writing about his diet, Daly was arrested for passing out in front of Hooters with a negative press, resulting in another 6-month ban from all professional golf As a constellation, Daly's mugshot was placed proudly inside the restaurant. However, he'd end the year with earnings of only $56,000, forcing yet another change in John Daly's life. Having grown tired of golf club dress codes, Daly decided to purchase his local course. You don't like the A dress code in golf that you find that offensive. You have your own golf course that you bought. Is there a dress code there? Well, basically all you got to do is cover your private parts and you can play my golf course, initially running the club at a loss just so the town had somewhere to play. I'm losing probably $250,000 to $350,000 a year somewhere in there. Anybody with kids or teams that want to come here and play, I think everybody should have a chance to play golf. But if you're on a team, you're more than welcome to come here and play free and, have fun here. Daly was able to practice and make a super successful comeback in 2016. Yet more recently, his life has taken a turn as a result of bladder cancer. Despite this, Daly has since achieved his best score in professional golf ever, has found massive success with clothing collaborations through a company called Loudmouth, and has done so all while establishing one of the greatest legacies in professional sporting history.